Energy Matters is brought to you by the National Gas Company of Trinidad and Tobago Limited. Energy Matters.
Good evening, I'm Urvashi Tawari Rupnarayan with Energy Matters. We start off this episode with sad news for the sector with the passing of Energy Minister Franklin Khan. Minister Khan served as Energy Minister from October 2016 to last Saturday when he passed. He was a petroleum geologist, a graduate of the University of the West Indies Mona campus and later the Arthur Lockjack Institute of Business. Minister Khan served as Member of Parliament, Minister of Works and Transport and also Rural Development. He was of course President of the Geological Society of Trinidad and Tobago on 2 occasions, Director of WASA and Chairman of the National Petroleum Marketing Company. Of course, Franklin Khan has been heralded by many, including the Energy Chamber of Trinidad and Tobago, who says he will be missed and mourned by friends and colleagues throughout the energy industry and Trinidad and Tobago and also around the world. Well, joining me tonight is President of the Energy Chamber, Dr. Thackeraway Driver. Dr. Driver, thank you so much for agreeing to come onto our show. So many, Dr. Driver, including the BPTT CEO, describe Mr. Khan as someone who always put the needs of the people of Trinidad and Tobago first and ensured that they benefited from the natural resources. Your take?
Well, I think that does describe him very well. I mean, he was very passionate about the energy industry, but it wasn't just for the industry itself. It was for what the industry could do for the people. And I would say I'd highlight sort of 2 areas in particular. Obviously, he was very passionate about his area where he came from, the southeast of Trinidad, and making sure that those rural communities in South Trinidad, which the home for a lot of the wealth generated by the energy industry, that they got a fair share of the resources generated by the sector. So that was one area I think he was very passionate about. But also then, and the last few years in particular, he really spent a lot of time trying to make sure that there were young people coming up into the sector and that there were opportunities created for young people and young professionals. And he did a lot of work in the last couple of years getting scholarship winners into the Ministry of Energy and trying to create career paths for them. And that was a passion that he had over the last few years in particular.
I get the impression that he was ranked in the industry as a tough negotiator.
Yes, I mean he was very clear about what he wanted, and and rightly was trying to ensure that he got the best value for Trinidad and Tobago from the industry. But I think also understood, because he was he was an industry insider. He knew the technically very strong and knew the issues around companies. So he was very aware of all of that. So yes, he was a tough negotiator, but understanding the position of companies as well, and understanding there has to be a balance.
But of course, Dr. Driver, his period as Energy Minister, that was from 2016 to now, it was marked by very difficult times for the country, the energy sector, energy across the world, not so?
Yes, sure. This has been a very difficult period. The energy sector had a major price declines 2014, 2015. Which had a big impact on the industry, and it's taken us a long time to climb out of that. And then last year, obviously, was just a very, very difficult time for the global industry, and the industry is going through this very big, long global transition to decarbonize, and that is a big challenge which we face, and it means that there are a lot of big issues which are coming up in the sector, which we have to find ways to navigate through.
Big issues coming up in the sector, but of course we have news today of a new energy and energy industries minister. That would be in Minister Stuart Young, but he's no stranger to the sector, as put by our political editor Joel Brown in his story. Minister Young and the late Mr. Khan were part of the negotiating team led by Prime Minister Rowley in London for talks with British oil and natural gas execs, and then of course he was at Houston with the PM for talks with top BP executives as well as Shell and EOG. Is there now renewed hope for the sector? And of course, what are the challenges within the industry that Minister Young will now meet?
Well, I mean, I think that I wouldn't say it's renewed hope, but there's some continuity, because we've lost a a real powerful figure in the industry. And I think we need to be aware of the gap that leaves. But we do have Minister Young coming in, who has been very involved in all of the negotiations with the international oil and gas companies around this issue of the gas value chain. And that really is the major issue which faces the industry at the moment. We're a gas-based economy, and we have this issue around trying to make sure we can find a way for investment to take place across that gas value chain. The fact that Minister Young has been very centrally involved in all of these discussions, I think, is an advantage. He's not going to have to get himself up to speed. He is up to speed already on all of those very important issues. But he will now have to add a lot of other issues we have in the sector, which he hasn't been as intimately involved in, onto his portfolio as well.
Dr. Driver, you talk about the challenges faced by the industry, and I think it's difficult for the regular person out there to really understand what do you mean. What are the challenges? We're an energy-based economy, but yet still much of us don't understand the value of energy and the situation that we are now in. Could you break it down a little?
Well, we are in a sector which is an international sector, and what happens in the international market has a very large impact upon us. And so basically the situation for Trinidad in the gas industry is that we have to find a way in which you can create enough value for the companies across that value chain from exploring and producing gas in the upstream and through to the petrochemical plants, then be able to buy gas at a competitive price where they can then sell products into an international market in a very competitive global industry. And that's challenging to do that, particularly if there is, if the country's taxation is so heavily reliant upon the rent from that gas industry that it becomes very difficult to restructure that in such a way that all of the companies can make investments on which they're going to get the return that their shareholders internationally are looking for. So remember when an investor in Trinidad is making a decision whether to invest in a new gas production project in Trinidad or drilling a new exploration well, they're not looking at Trinidad. They've got a map of the world, and they've got assets across the world, and they're making decisions about where they're going to get the best return on their investment. So we are competing for capital with a lot of other places in the world, places with very much larger reservoirs and resources of gas under the ground than we have. So it is tough. It's a tough industry.
So we've got to make Trinidad and Tobago once again a preferred area for energy companies to come invest and manufacture.
Yes, and we have a lot of big advantages here, which we mustn't ignore. I mean, we have a very strong history in the industry. We have very good professionals in the sector. We have strong service companies able to service the industry. Great geographical location. So there's many positive things we have going for us. So I really think that some of the doom and gloom, sometimes gets a bit overdone. We have to say that we have the opportunity for this industry to continue. There's going to be a continued, but it'll change. It'll be a different industry, not the same as it's been. We're going to have to be much more efficient in how we use the energy we have. We cannot waste resources like we have in the past, like we do with gas going into the electricity sector and being sold at heavily subsidized prices, which the industry has to subsidize, and then we are wasting lots of electricity, and we are one of the least efficient users of electricity in the world. We can't continue with those sort of things. So there's changes which have to happen. But I believe that the country can make those changes. We've made them in the past, and we're able to make them again now.
Dr. Driver, as we close, you've been president of the Chamber even during our recent highs. What would you like to see going forward?
Well, I think we have to have this strong focus on what is it we have to do to be able to attract the investment. We have to focus on the ease of doing business. We have to make sure that we maximize the value from the industry, which is kept in the country through having the right policies around local content. which means that, that the dollars being spent by the international operators here, as much as possible of that remains in the country. We have to leverage our strengths in the industry to begin to export more services and take advantage of this rapid growth in the hydrocarbon sector in Guyana and in Suriname and in renewables around the region. And then we have to chart the energy transition. We have to decarbonize our sector as we're doing all of this. So we have some massive things we have to do. But I think we can do it because we have a strong industry here.
Dr. Thackeray Driver, President of the Energy Chamber, thank you so much for joining us on Energy Matters tonight.
Thank you.
I'm Urvashi Tiwari Rupnarayan. Continue to join us for Energy Matters, where we bring you energy news, interviews, and tell you all the reasons why energy should matter to you. Energy Matters every Monday in the TV6 7 p.m. news.
Energy Matters was brought to you by the National Gas Company of Trinidad and Tobago Limited. Energy Matters.